All right, today, everybody, welcome to the show again. Our next guest is a friend of mine, Kysha. This is Kysha Lansaw. She is a realtor in the area. She's also just got her broker's license, so she's become a broker. And she's a big timer, and we're going to hear all about her story today, which is full of delightful, wonderful things.
Not so sure about that, but okay.
It is. So let's start off with where are you from? Where were you born?
I was born in Van Nuys, California.
Van Nuys, very good.
My parents were divorced when I was 2, and I moved back here with my mom.
And what was your legal name then?
Kysha Lansaw,
Okay.
or Atchison. Whoa.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been married too
you
long.
married, right?
Married
I know
too
you
long.
stole the name somewhere.
Atchison.
Yeah, Atchison. Okay. And then you moved. So at 2, your parents got a divorce. Well, do you remember that? Or-
No, that's pretty normal.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know. I don't
Like
remember
my parents
2.
together, that's just weird.
Yeah. But what is so? What would be your first memory that you remember?
Actually, I was probably about 3 or 4, and the bag lady of Joplin was hungry, so I brought her inside and sat her on the couch and asked my mom for a sandwich for my grandma. So yeah, that's probably the first memory.
And then what happened? How old were you then?
I was about 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Mhm.
So then, what happened after that? You started did you lead a cult or anything in kindergarten or?
No, but I had my group. After that, my mom and her boyfriend separated. We bounced around for a little bit, and we ended up in a trailer park off of Fountain and Carl Junction schools. My mom was a single mom, so she worked a lot. At the time, she was working at Cardinal Scales, so kind of, I don't know, got in the groove. I was about 4 and a half, going on 5. Went to Webb City my first year of woohoo school. And yeah, from there, it was pretty normal for a while. My mom did start dating a guy that did sexually abuse me. I was molested for approximately 10 years.
How was that? I mean, holy shit. What was that like? I mean, at 5, you said you were like 5 years old?
Mm-hmm. From 5 to about 14. When you're that young, you don't understand that that's not okay. So as you get older, you start realizing this isn't okay, blah, blah, blah. And you might choose to tell a few people. You might not. In my case, I told a few people, and they kind of laughed it off and acted like it didn't happen. So, yeah, I dealt with that. But I mean, other than that specific little thing, everything was good. Except my mom kept backing over my dogs.
Well, hold on. The dogs don't matter. I mean, like, I mean, no, you don't have to give names, but I mean, the specifics in who were the people that you told? Like, were they teachers? Were they,
Friends.
Friends of you?
Yeah. And I mean, at that age, you tell your friend, what's your friend gonna do with that? I mean, that's a lot to put on anybody at that age. But I had told a couple people, and at that age, it was kind of out of my control. So it becomes a norm. I mean, it wasn't like all the time, it was just sporadically. So yeah, it happened, but you kind of move on with your day to day. I mean,
how did that affect you and make you change you every day? Like, were you full of anger or rage or?
No, I was a little more distant. I didn't hug as much. I didn't, if I didn't know you, yeah, you weren't getting close to me.
So is that, you think that would be a sign for maybe other people? Like, I mean, if you're looking at
Pay
other
attention.
kids,
Pay attention to how the child reacts, that sort of thing. Because any off color, if they're grabbing themselves or, something like that, I mean, that's kind of a dead giveaway to me. And just kind of watch how they interact with people, because if they're, I don't know a kid that isn't willing to hug somebody.
Right.
You know, so if that child's not willing to hug somebody, there might be something going on.
It's good to know. At that time, I mean, you're 5 to 10 in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have siblings?
I didn't. I was an only child.
Only child. So, I mean, that had to be even harder to not have people to really understand your situation.
It was, but when you're that young, it becomes a normal thing. And I know that's kind of weird, but you know, when you're that young, you don't know until you get older that that's not okay, that's not normal. They teach it in school and stuff, but they teach it to like 3rd, 4th graders, you know, and that's when you start realizing, oh wait, that's not right. That shouldn't have happened.
And the schools tell you to tell a counselor or
yeah,
teacher.
tell a counselor or a teacher. I mean, but
did you get to that point? Did you?
I did, but nothing really came of it. I don't know if it was just a good story on the other side, or if it was, well, she's exaggerating, or, you know, I don't really know on that.
So nobody ever, this man never went into custody or nothing? Even today, nothing has happened?
Nothing's happened.
God. And this person's still alive? They're still around? I mean,
they're very old now.
well, I mean, still,
but,
I don't believe there's not a statute of limitations on
there's
that.
not. But yeah, you know, that's something that's in my past, and I don't dwell on that. I am a little standoffish, you know, with new people until I get a good vibe.
I mean, there's nothing that makes you want that person to pay some kind of consequence or
no,
have
I
some
kind of
justice?
handled that.
I mean, do you think that person has hurt anybody else or would continue? I mean,
I don't. I really don't. It stopped when I stood up. And I said, no, this is not right. This is not okay. And I confronted him. So that's just kind of how.
how did that happen?
I caught myself in the same place, alone. Went to happen again, and I got a backbone. And I stood up and I said, you know, this is not okay. You cannot do this. And I went off. I actually ended up walking home that day because I wasn't going to be in the same vehicle.
I mean, I'm sure there's probably not any small kids that are really watching this, but I mean, is there something that you think? Because I know you're a parent of several kids, and
I am. I have 4.
And I mean, is there something that you teach your kids to if anything like that was
Always
to happen?
keep the lines of communication open. I've asked my daughter, she's 9, you know, if anybody touches your bad spot or, you know, anything like that, you need to tell me. And I will go to jail. I have no problem with that. Not in that situation.
Oh, I know you're crazy. I mean, we're good on that.
Yeah, I'm as crazy as they come.
I do believe you.
But during that time, I learned how to operate backhoes and bobcats and, I mean, all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, it didn't affect who I became in like a large overtime thing. I don't think.
I mean, did you started off?
Bright-eyed, bushy.
Well, I guess we'll just move to the next. I mean, so 5 to 10. That's kind of what you were going through, but then you got into like the preteen ages and
preteens. Those were interesting. I went through a very angry side. I don't know if that has to do with anything that happened prior to. My mom was going to school full-time, working full-time, trying to raise me. She went through a manic depressive stage at one point and locked herself in her bedroom for a few weeks, and I paid the bills and did the grocery shopping and.
wow, that's at like 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. No, I mean,
I was pretty money savvy too. I knew that she kept her tips in the top drawer of the dresser, you know, and hey, we're out of food. I'm going down to the grocery store, and I'd walk over to the grocery store, so, or get a ride.
I mean, do you think what she was going through maybe had something to do with what had happened to you?
No, I think the stress of trying to make ends meet was really hard on her. When I was growing up, she always had these really big dreams and felt like a failure a lot. So I think at some point in your life, that just kind of crashes down on you, and you have to find your way out of that hole. And I think that was just her time period when it crashed.
Well, I know, just kind of reflecting on my own life, like I've had things that happened to me that made me misplace my anger, and I'm sure you had to have some anger.
Oh, I had some anger issues in my
like,
preteen and teen years.
Did you misplace that on anybody, that maybe didn't deserve it or anything?
The wall. The wall really hated me.
The wall?
I used to punch walls, trees. I used to get in fights a lot. Normally over, somebody mistreating somebody that I cared about, or that, I was very overprotective of me and mine in those preteen years. So it actually wound me up huffing. I used to huff butane.
How old were you when you were doing this?
I was about 14.
Oh my God.
13, 14, I was huffing butane and spray paint and basically anything I could get my hands on. I remember my mom, I got in with the wrong crowd, but you got anger issues, that happens. My mom came to pick me up once, and we were in the car, and I was higher than a kite, and she started lecturing me. And we had this little Shih Tzu, and he was sitting on my lap, and I turned around, I looked at her, and I told her straight up, if she didn't get off my back, I was going to throw the dog out the window. Dog didn't deserve it, but I was high, I was angry.
Was it, like a representation or something? Like, all your anger.
I think over the course of everything, it just kind of, that mixed with hormones, just kind of all came to a head in my preteen. My mom calls it the year my brain logged off. But that wound me up in Heartland Behavioral. I did a stint there for 2 weeks. I got out, started seeing a counselor who wanted me to promise I wouldn't try to commit suicide. At the time, I was a manic depressive. Didn't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. Very closed off in my own little world.
And did you really have thoughts of suicide at that time?
I did. I had attempted numerous times without success. They say 1 in 5 will actually go down the suicide route, which is a very, for me, strong statistic.
Do you think that was something that was caused by the molestation, or was that more of the drugs? Or
I think it was probably a combination of all of it, and just not really knowing how to deal with the cards that I was dealt. When you have a single parent, they got to do what they got to do to put food on the table. So they're not always there. And that kind of...
did you feel, at that time, like your mother was neglecting you, or did you understand?
I understood, but it made me angry. Because you would see these kids that, they have mom and dad, and, they did the sports and all the stuff, and you're kind of sitting there going, well, I wish I could, but my mom has to work, so I can't do that. When I was younger, elementary school, my mom had actually forgotten me a couple times at school because she was working.
Have you ever forgotten your kids?
Maybe once or twice.
It happens to all of us. Sorry.
Never to the extent that my mom forgot me. When you're sitting at the school for 3 hours and you're going, I know she's going to come.
Eventually, she's gonna realize I haven't taken a bath, I haven't had dinner.
Yeah, eventually she's gonna go,
Something.
wait a minute, where is my child that's normally glued to my hip? But yeah,
Yes.
so I hit a dark spot.
14 was a hell of a year for you.
Oh yes.
I mean,
I tried to commit suicide. I want to say a couple times. A couple could be anywhere from 1 to like 100 with me. So,
gosh.
I drank lighter fluid once. I hung myself once. I'm actually only here because the rope broke.
Oh my God.
I support scars on my wrists from suicide attempts. Mental illness is.
I know, like, I understand the suicide attempts in different ways, but drinking lighter fluid? What is that? Like, I mean, was that an attempt at suicide, or was that to get?
It said do not drink.
Or was that to try to get a high?
That was an attempt to suicide. That was one of those. I'm done. I can't do this.
I mean, I don't even know how you could stomach that. Like, I mean, I don't know. What
It makes you
tastes like.
projectile vomit a lot.
Okay. Yeah,
I mixed it with soda.
Oh.
To this day, the smell of it kind of puts this taste in my mouth, and I'm just like, ugh. We have a gas grill because of that.
It's unbelievable. I just can't even imagine just the thought of even drinking it. Just, oh, you poor girl.
I did it to myself.
But now I know that, I mean, going through that and going through the things that you had already went through, and then you're going through the suicide attempts and stuff, and that's about the same time that you started having physical relationships, right?
I lost my virginity at 14 to a guy very, very much older than me.
And I understand that that's somebody that you still talk to.
Yeah. Actually, we are still very close friends. I'm
gonna say, don't say his name, because I'm gonna call him a piece of shit. I don't
All
care.
right, Shane.
I don't know how in the world that you're okay with that. I think that it's a stem from all of your other things, but
I think I was forced to grow up very fast.
Right.
So I think mentally, I probably wasn't 14.
Right.
You know, I had already experienced paying bills and doing grocery shopping and finances and taking care of a house. I had already experienced what most kids don't even, can't even fathom. I mean, I know I have a 17-year-old that I have to tell him every day, go do your chores, go clean your room. Why do you smell like bud? You know? So I think by 14, you know, I had already kind of grown up mentally.
I understand that feeling of being like other people your age just don't understand where you are.
Right.
You know?
It's like they don't understand the finances.
I can understand that, but I can't in my life ever understand how a grown man could think that he was on the same level as any 14-year-old.
Well, and I mean, we're 7 years apart. And if you think about that, you know, with somebody older, you know, my husband and I are 4 years apart. You know, it's not a big gap when you're older.
But he didn't marry you at 14.
No, he did not. I actually got into some trouble and got shipped off.
At 14?
At 14, let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
At 14, with the suicide attempts and the whole 9 yards, I wound up in a lot of trouble. I wouldn't promise a psychiatrist that I would not try to hurt myself, which in turn got me arrested. I got charged with assault to a police officer. I got put in juvenile hall.
Did the officer deserve it?
Tubbo tried to pop my head like a zit. So yes.
That's what the world wants to know.
And I don't know about anybody else, but if a cop's walking towards you saying, I'm not going to arrest you, I'm not going to nothing, they have their hand on their cuffs, they're a lying sack of shit. You are lying to me? I didn't do anything to be arrested. Anyhow, by the time I was all said and done, I did do something to be arrested. I ended up in juvenile hall. I ended up in teen court. I had to do 120 hours of community service. I did at the Salvation Army and ran in my bag lady a few times.
What'd you do there at the Salvation Army?
I sorted clothes, filled racks, stuff like that.
So you got, like, was that your first job? Or kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it was community service, but yeah, I guess it was a job.
But I mean, kind of your first chance at actually working, like kind of feel like you're actually working, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little uniform I had to wear, you know, I thought I was cool. You know, not very many people could sit there and say, you know, I did this, but I spent a year kind of bouncing back and forth while my anger issues had gotten to a point where the school decided to call DFS. DFS got involved and I was placed in foster care. They came in, they took me out, I packed my bags, you know, whole 9 yards. They took me to a foster home in Joplin. At the time I lived outside of city limits, so I was now officially in town. And I remember the foster mom asking me why I didn't like it there. And it was like, it wasn't that I didn't like them or their dynamic or anything like that. It was, you guys just ripped me out of my house. You put me with total strangers, and yeah, that's just not cool. So I was pretty angry about that, very upset, and she asked me if I was going to run. Well, me being the honest person I am, I looked at her, I said yes, and she's like, well, you don't know your way back. Well, me being me, decided to give her road by road, step by step instructions on how to get home from where I was. That freaked her out. So there was a transport. They picked me up and took me to Lakeland Mental Hospital in Springfield. I spent 2 weeks there, 3 weeks. That's kind of a blur. I don't remember like the first week and a half I was there. They had me on some pretty heavy meds. They were treating me for schizophrenic stuff. I was not schizophrenic. I was an A+ student. I couldn't hold a complete sentence.
What was the feeling that you had, like being, like, how did you feel emotionally? Like, did it feel like a prison, or was it, you know, did you feel at all like people were trying to help you?
No, I didn't. What I needed, I was not getting in that circumstance.
What do you feel like you needed?
I needed consistency, support, and understanding. What I got was, she's a threat to herself and a threat to society. We need to lock her up for her own well-being. I could see where they got that. I was definitely a troubled teenager, but I think with the right person, need to be a therapist, counselor, whatever. I have dropped a lot of money in therapy and stuff. I would have been just fine. So I don't remember the first few weeks I was there. I do remember my mom came to visit me. I don't remember her really leaving. My roommate in Lakeland had hepatitis.
Oh.
So they were doing blood draws on me. They stabbed me. Okay, stabbed me. Well, I mean, you put a needle in my arm.
Well, I mean, this place is still in business. We can't say stabbing or we might get you in trouble.
They took blood from me. They poked me 8 times on one arm, 12 times in the other. I had bruises from my wrist to just below my shoulder. To this day, I can't get blood out of my left arm from scar tissue. From there, I went to Turnaround Ranch, which is a residential care facility. They put me in ICU, which is intensive care unit. Basically, for your really crazies, that's where you start. So I went there, and I actually did very well there. I had a psychologist that understood me. So I worked the program, and you go from the ICU to the next level to the next level. Well, I went to that middle level, and My dad was on the ship. He was supposed to be coming to get me. This is 9/11. So big military thing going on at the time. And I had been cheeking my meds for...
What do you call that?
Cheeking.
What is it?
That's where they give you your medication and you put it in your mouth and you don't swallow it. So you don't actually take your meds. I was on Paxil at the time. That was like the go-to drug of the day. And
what did, now, in that, do you think the medicine was helpful? I mean, do you think medicine was helpful for you?
I think it was to an extent. I started cheeking my meds in Turnaround Ranch, and literally after about a month of it, I went to my psychiatrist for a med review, is what they call it. And we used to have group therapies and stuff like that as well, but the psychologist seemed to understand me. So I felt comfortable with him. And he asked me how the meds were going, and I said, well, honestly, I don't know. And I pulled out all my meds, and I sat them down on his desk. I said, I haven't been on meds for the past month. So he took me off all my meds.
So you were doing okay.
So I was doing really well. They actually wanted to move me up to the 3rd level, which is like a group home. So you get to like go away for school. You get to, go to the store, and, it's more of a group home setting where I was more locked down. I actually chose to stay in the restrictive but not overly restricted thing. And I remember 9/11 happened, and I had told my roommate that if my dad didn't show up, I was going to run. So they took my shoes, because I guess you can't run without shoes. I don't know, I grew up kind of in the country, so I have no problems running without shoes. And put me in these bright orange scrubs. I guess, hey,
Jumpsuits.
I can see her.
Yeah.
Hey, I can rock some orange.
Did you pick up trash?
No, actually, I took care of horses.
Well, that's cool. I mean,
It really was. It was cool.
It sounds like it's actually a beneficial and good place.
Right.
Do you think that was probably the best of the
treatment
centers?
facilities? Yes. Now, mind you have to be really fucked up to get into residential care, but at the time I was. So it was very beneficial. I know it's kind of changed now, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But
since you brought up your dad, I want to know, what was your relationship like with your dad? Because, you just talked about being raised up by your mom.
I used to spend, when I was 5, my dad got remarried. My dad was career Navy. He was stationed in San Diego. I was here with my mom. We would spend about a week a year together. I would hop on a plane. There for a while, I got really good, and like all the stewardess and stuff from United knew who I was. I was an unaccompanied minor. They would fly me back and forth.
Wow. Do you think that lack of involvement by your father made you?
No, actually, my dad and I are kind of two peas in a pod, honestly. Me and my mom are total opposites, but me and my dad are pretty much the same. So I always kind of felt like I had a home to go to if something bad happened. Well, in my teen years, something bad happened. And yeah. So
now, and I'm going to go before all this, or like kind of into all that. I didn't get to, but I know you said you liked the psychologist there at the ranch.
Yes.
Was there anybody else before that maybe kind of helped you or said something to you that might have given you hope or anything,
I had a friend that was raped by her dad, and she was very supportive of me, and very just, it's okay, it's not gonna last forever, type friend. And I had a lot of just friends that would pull me out of my funk,
Was she able to give you any advice on what, on how to maybe get away from some of those situations?
Not really, but she was good as far as like the mental mindset of not letting it hold you back.
It's awesome.
So,
it's something that's necessary.
you know, you don't dwell on stuff like that because that'll kill you. And I learned that the hard way.
Seems like all that you went through just until that point. Like I would think that would make you
Very angry.
Very much a loner, you know. And
I had my group. I wasn't like the popular cheerleader type, but I wasn't like the druggy type. I kind of floated and blended with everybody.
I would just think that would make me angry at everybody, you know.
I did go through a goth stage about that time.
Okay, there we go. That makes sense. That's all right.
I went through a goth stage. I went through like a badass stage, and but my friends did too, and my friends didn't judge me for that. I had a few really close friends that I was always at their house. They were always at my house, you know, just very close.
Is there? I know there's a lot of teenagers going through things. There's a lot of kids going through these same things, and I hope that somebody can share, you know, what you've gone through with that, because you've gone through so much hard times, but you've got some great times too.
Oh yeah, who can say they were driving a backhoe at 8? Me. Or, you know, hey, I can set a septic tank. Or I know the value of hard work because I built a mobile home park when I was growing up. You know, I can legitimately say I had some really good times. You know, me and my mom, we used to make chocolate covered pretzels. That was kind of our thing. That and French toast. She's got a picture of me butt naked with my little cardboard tray and my French toast. I can put down some French toast now. But yeah, I had a friend that her grandma lived on the farm, and my fear of geese came from there. Terrified of those evil little
Still
creatures.
afraid of geese.
I am. The geese used to come, and there was this one, and he hated me.
How old are you? How old are you now?
33.
33. You're scared of geese. All right.
I am. Anything that flies. My mom had a blue jay that she saved, and it started flying, and I would duck, and out the door. I'm done.
I just want to say, I don't think anybody has ever. There's not a death certificate that said cause of death geese anywhere on the planet.
Well, they ain't been bit by one.
And even if a goose did kill you now somehow, they would call it.
I have
COVID-19.
literally been goosed by a goose repeatedly. The thing hated me. But I've swam in water troughs. I've swam in ditches. I used to go skating on the weekends. I had a pretty normal childhood with lots of good times. I just have some dark little skeletons that, they're there too.
And so, damn near everything happened to you at 14. You just had a crazy 14.
14 was a hell of a ride. There was this old hippie guy, and he rode the tornado to Hobby Lobby. But yeah, it was a hell of a ride. They took away my shoes. They put me in orange. My psychiatrist made him give it back because I wasn't running until after my court date. My dad did show up, and I actually did end up going to live with him. I remember sitting around a table with the attorneys and my guardian ad litem and myself, and they're going around and they're like, okay, we need to do introductions. They get to me, and I'm said child.
You what?
I'm said child.
Said child.
Said child, because everybody was, and who are you to said child?
Right.
Well, I'm said child's father. Right. I'm said child's guardian ad litem. I'm said child's mother, and I'm sitting there, and they get to me, and I thought my mom was going to come unglued. My mom and my dad both were like, I'm going to beat your ass. They get to me, and I nonchalantly go, I'm said child. Well, I was sarcastic. Still am a little bit, not going to lie. And I remember them telling my mom that if she got rid of the boyfriend, that I could go home. And I remember my mom stating at that time that she had done it for 14 years, and it was her turn to have a life. And I was pissed.
Said this in the courtroom?
the round table with all the
Right,
attorneys and stuff deciding my future. Yes, in front of me. And papers were signed, and I kind of blacked out after that. I was really angry. I had some anger issues back then. Didn't control it very well. So.
I mean, I could certainly understand that. I mean, it's now. I mean, you guys have made up.
Oh yeah, my mom's
relationship.
my mom, and you screw with my mom, and you're gonna get me because, well, that's my mom, and the only person allowed to screw with my mom is me.
But I mean, was she just saying like, I want to go live my life, or was she saying she was choosing the boyfriend over you?
She basically chose the boyfriend over me. Which, now that I'm older, she did it wrong, but I understand what she was doing. Took me years of therapy to understand. But I do understand that she had gotten to a point where she knew she couldn't help me.
But this...
And he was an out.
Was this the same boyfriend?
No, different boyfriend.
Oh.
My mom had numerous boyfriends. She taught me a long time ago, men are a dime in a dozen.
A dime in a dozen.
Yep, there's always a dime in a dozen. You need something fixed, you go date the plumber. You need car repair, you go date the mechanic. I mean, when you're a single mom, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, I mean, that's good. It wasn't the same,
No, they had separated, and she was with a different guy. He had anger issues, very similar to my anger issues. I held my gunpoint once.
Well, I mean...
I unloaded the gun first, though.
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad.
Oh, they were in a fight, and...
Well, I mean, they say that stems, a lot of times, child abuse stems from being abused as a child and that kind of thing. But I mean...
They do. Statistics there do show.
But I mean, obviously, you look at things differently. You're not trying to abuse people.
No.
You're not trying to hurt nobody, so you're taking it a different way. But
everybody has good in them.
just going through the
Even
things
the
that you
worst.
went through to 14, like, I mean...
I went to live in California then.
But I mean, before we get there, I say, like, I know 14 is a crazy time, and I tell my kids, I tell my kids all the time, like, middle school is like probably the most stressful time in your life, which is difficult. But and at that time, you don't want to listen to anybody. Like, whatever.
You don't know it all.
I know everything.
You're 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Right.
I mean, it's like, I got this.
Do you think there's anything that you could say to somebody that's maybe going through some rough times at that age that maybe it might soak into them?
I told my son, out of everything in the world, talk to me. I've been through a lot. My son knows my story. He's 17. I've said that before, my oldest one. Just talk, keep those communication, keep it open, and the more they understand that, they're not going to get in trouble, the more they're going to be open and honest with you. And that is just, I can't. My kid's friend was walking down the street at 3 o'clock in the morning. He called my son. Well, when he got to my house, I turned around, I looked down, and I said, you know what? You don't call my son at 3 o'clock in the morning because he can lose his driver's license for that. You call me, I will pick you up. I will make sure you are safe. I will make sure your parents know that you are safe. And we can talk about it if you want, or you can just go in and go to bed. It's fine. But it's keeping that trust open. I mean, my son knows if he goes out and he gets drunk, he can call me. I will pick him up.
Yeah.
He might be grounded, but in the same breath, he knows that my mom's not going to judge me for that.
Right. That's good.
So.
That's real good. You were saying
I did it.
So like after the 14 thing, that's when you shipped out to California, whatever.
I went to live with my dad.
Whatever.
I remember I got in the car and we were leaving Turnaround Ranch. First thing I did is I looked at him. I said, "Give me a cigarette." My dad about died. He gave me a cigarette though. Actually, it was my stepmom, but I think they had decided that it was going to be harder to make me quit at that point than just supply. And at least they knew I wasn't smoking any wacky tobacco or anything laced or,
They
you
knew
know.
it?
They hoped. So I went to California.
And that's a huge culture shock. So you
Oh,
moved
yeah.
out here young, right? So you pretty much lived out here before that. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's a huge difference. What
Yep.
was that like? Mm.
It was awesome. I'd learned that thug life in California, yeah, ain't nothing. Wow. Talk about, I went from Bloods and Crips and, cool stuff here in big old Joplin to Fatos, and they really will kill you there. And I made some really good friends out there, and I did have a lot of adjustment issues.
So you started high school there?
I was actually in junior high. I went in 8th grade. So I finished my 8th grade year there in a very hoity-toity community, and we were the military trash.
So do you guys live on base? Or?
We lived in military housing.
Oh, okay. So you were around other kids that were kind of insane.
And we went to base, and I mean, it was what it was. What was really cool is, you think Marines, squids, etc. as old guys. I'm thinking, they're 18, let's party. You can buy my cigarettes.
So you were pretending to be older and trying to party at that point.
Hell yeah. There's nothing better than a squid party.
It's not helping. Don't listen to her, kids. Straighten up. Okay.
But yes, I was, hanging out with the squids. My dad taught me about cars.
Very good.
So I had a channel to...
something to focus on other than all the...
Yeah, it kept me from putting holes in the walls.
Well, I mean, you should be good at fixing drywall if you're punching all these holes in the walls. I mean...
Duct tape fixes everything. I probably couldn't fix a hole in the wall to save my ass, but I could duct tape it or put a picture over it.
It's a paper plate, and then you just put mud over it, and then you paint it.
There you go.
Pretty
simple. Yeah.
No.
Expand the foam. Showed some houses.
I've seen it. It's unbelievable. Okay, so then...
ended up in Southern California. Nice culture shock. Learn that if you really want to make enemies in Southern California, try to be a thug. It took me 4 years to get rid of my accent. It's back now.
I don't even notice we have an accent.
We do.
I mean...
It's like Wisconsin people.
Well, they got an accent. There's Wisconsin.
Yeah, but when you're up there, they don't.
Well, see, like, I think I talk the same as I did in Iowa, but when I go home, people are like, you talk like a hillbilly.
In California, there is no accent. No. It is very blended. So you have your Hicks and your Mexicans and your, everybody. And it's just one flat, very by the book. There's no draw.
So how long were you in California?
On and off, about 5 years. I got in trouble.
So you got your first license and stuff out there, right?
Actually, I was military, so I drove back here and got my driver's license because it was easier.
Well, they're terrible drivers out there. I would have figured they were just...
I learned to drive on a 6-lane freeway, though.
Ugh, gross.
My dad literally, we were going up the grade, and it's a 4-lane highway, and when I say the grade, it's up the side of a mountain. And he pulls over the single cab truck and sets the e-brake, standard shift. There's 4 of us in the cab of that stupid thing. And I'm not small. My friend was not small. Her brother was tiny, though, luckily. And told me to drive home. And I did. We did not hit second gear. We hit first, and then we went straight to third because my friend's leg was in the way. But, yeah, I drove home. That's how I learned to drive.
I mean, do you feel like that? You feel like the move was really good?
It was very beneficial for me. During the adjustment, I did have some suicidal things going on and some no friends, no anything, depression. I was actually diagnosed with manic depression and bipolar. Bipolar's not curable. I don't think I have bipolar.
Yes, I do.
I don't think I have bipolar, but
I think you're okay with it. I know some people that are got that. But.
I know at one point my stepmom got pretty freaked out and tried to lock me up while my dad was out on Westpac. That did not end well.
How was the relationship with the stepmom? Like, did you mind that, or?
It was hard in the beginning. Now she's my mom. I have my mom and I have mom. And my mom is my mom, and mom is my stepmom. So, but my moms are very different. So once I learned that, because my mom is more, hey, let's be friends. Where my stepmom's more, I'm Betty Crocker and I'm your mom.
Yeah.
And you will do school and you will learn and you will be an outstanding member of society.
Well, you know, and going back and forth between the two, it makes both of them more that way, you know.
Yeah.
Because I know I deal with that with my ex, because she's wants to be their friend, and so I feel like I have to be more stricter, more
Right.
You know? And so I know that tear just gets further and further.
Well, and it was weird because when I moved to California, my stepmom, she made dinner. I'm like, what the hell is this? You're making food and we're going to sit down together and we're going to eat. This is cool. So,
awesome. But no, I mean, I think that's great. I think the move is incredible because I tell people all the time when you need a change in your life or teenager, I mean, you got to move them. I think it's huge. Get them in a different state, somewhere totally different. Because it's
they
a
gotta
circle.
experience it.
It's your circle of influence. Even though you feel like they're, you know, your people are your friends, they're really holding you in that
All my
same...
people are my friends. My clients are my friends are my friends, my family's my friends.
But I mean, like when you were a teenager and you were doing all that bad stuff, they were doing that bad stuff with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, some of them. Some of them kind of had my back and they're like, Kysha, you're going to kill yourself. I'd rather you be smoking a joint than, you know, huffing paint, you know?
Yeah.
I had some pretty cool druggy friends.
But still druggy friends, and you know, the getting away from that, I think, is a tremendous benefit. You know?
And see, I'm lucky because I did it all young.
Yeah.
So my permanent record's sealed. You know, I don't have any criminal anythings on my record. So that's a bonus.
So you've been good since 18. Anyway.
Sure.
I mean, legally or.
I have not done anything illegal.
Good. Very good.
Yeah, I have not done anything illegal. How do you think
So anyway, so in this point, so you're in California.
I'm in California.
All right. Now, what all happens there? I mean, is there anything crazy that happens there, or is it just a lot of healing and kind of good time?
My stepmom tried to lock me up in Balboa Naval Medical Center. That did not end well.
In the Navy Center.
Yeah, the Naval Medical is the hospital.
So is that like different by any means?
It's military. It's just military. It's like a hospital, but it's military.
Yeah, make you wake up at 3 a.m. and all that.
I don't know. They didn't get that far.
No.
So she pulled me out of school, took me to the emergency room because she thought I was going to kill myself. She didn't tell me what she was doing, which pissed me off, honestly. So once I kind of caught on to what was going on, I decided I wasn't doing it, so I left. Well, the military police officers did not agree with that. So I left. It took 8 military police officers and Master Chief slamming my face on the cement to get me to comply. I was put in 5-point harnesses on a hospital bed.
What's going through your mind when they're doing this? I mean,
That fucking bitch.
I mean, that's it. Just pure anger.
Actually, and this is going to sound really weird to you because you're a guy, I was on my period. And they wanted me to piss in a cup. I had no problem with pissing in a cup, except I'm on my period. I don't have a tampon. I don't have a pad. She took me from school. My stuff is in the car.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're saying.
All of these, everybody there's men.
Right.
So it's like, you couldn't even like, hey, this is why I won't do this, or, you know, because they're all guys. And I mean, you're 14. You don't even buy that stuff on your own yet. You're like sitting there going, Mom, would you go to the store for me? You know? And it was just one of those, I was not doing it. So I was put in 5-point restraints. They actually ended up helo flighting my dad off of the ship from Westpac. And my dad walked in, and I guess the guy told my dad that I was crazy. My dad walked in, and he's like, where is she? Needless to say, that did not end well for me. My dad physically put me back on the bed, told me if I moved a muscle, he was going to break me in half. And my dad's a big guy. He's kind of scared.
I mean, you look scared talking about it.
He's a big guy. I mean, I know my dad would never do anything to hurt me, but he was mad. And now I actually understand a little more as to why. The military actually bought me a plane ticket back to Missouri after this.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a big ordeal. And I ended up back in Missouri for about 6 months.
So
and
where
then
did you go in Missouri?
My mom.
You went back to your mom.
They sent me back to my mom. I got in trouble here. And the Department of Family Services bought me a plane ticket back to California.
And there was nobody else that could help you?
So basically at that point, I realized that I had nowhere else to go. During that time period, there's a Bad Company song, and one of the lyrics is, where I lay my head is home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that. I mean, because I didn't have any stable anything. Because the military is like, oh, she's coming back here. My dad's like, oh, she's coming back here. My mom's like, ooh, she's going back there.
I mean, I can't compare it with the molestations and things, but I know just going from place to place and feeling like you don't have any stable home.
Mm-hmm. It sucks.
It's an incredible feeling that stays with you for so long.
Especially when you're young.
Yeah.
You know, when you're young, you need that stability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially during puberty. Yeah.
I think it brings up a lot of abandonment issues and things, and I mean, from being in sales, and I mean, we both do real estate and things, and I think a lot of people that do what we do kind of come from that a little bit and kind of have a lot of that, where you have these abandonment and rejection issues, and for some reason we seek it through sales, which is something that brings us more rejection, which is crazy that we do that. But
it's a vicious cycle.
It's very
My
strange.
dad says I can sell ice to an Eskimo.
It's just.
But I don't like to sell.
No matter how good we are, I mean, you're always going to get rejection at some point. Somebody's going to choose another agent to list their house. Somebody, something's going to happen. And it's like, I don't understand.
I actually think it's made me very black and white.
I don't understand the mentality like that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just
a
super
dude.
cool. Yeah,
You're just the dude.
But I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of crazy psychology in that, and it's always fascinating.
It is very fascinating.
It's just, but anyway, so.
They finally got my meds under control. I did really good until when I ended up back in California. I did really good. I got in a few fights, don't get me wrong, and I did my normal rebellion. I mean, I came home at 5 o'clock in the morning, drunk off my ass, 5 hours later than I was supposed to be, and
but what?
Dad tried to kill me.
What was it? Some point you had to be somewhere around this time where you started straightening up. And there's.
I did. 14, 15. We moved from Scripps Ranch, and my dad bought a house in Ramona. And in the beginning in Ramona, it was really rough for me. I couldn't find my clique.
Right.
Everybody needs their clique. Just your people. And once I found that, it was pretty easy. There was this one girl that just really thought that she needed to pick a fight with me. I was really good at ending it. I did end up expelled over that. To the point of my science teacher, I remember I was dropping off my book. She's like, "Hey, Tyson, what's up?" Like, Not much. She's like, I know you didn't start that. I watched it. You were pretty good. She was cool. She was really cool. She was like a biker science teacher. So, but yeah, I mean, I ended up expelled from Ramona High and ended up at Montecito, which was the alternative school. I fit great. The hours worked for me. I was self-paced. I actually ended up graduating high school a year and a half early.
That's awesome.
So,
I mean, it's
very
incredible.
beneficial.
I mean, to come from everything that you came from and to be able to get it done early, it's amazing.
Well, my dad told me when I graduated I could move out.
Oh, well, I mean, that does,
You know,
it's really
it kinda helps.
encouraging. I guess. It's funny how rewards do work for some folks.
Hey.
So you graduated, and then what you do after you graduate?
Sat on my dad's couch until he gave me an ultimatum. My dad actually gave me an ultimatum. I could either go get a full-time job, enroll in college full-time, or join the military. Well, I chose option D. If you counted, there wasn't an option D.
A and B. I choose D.
So he went to work, and my boyfriend at the time, he was 4 years older than me. Sorry, I like older guys. I met him through, I was selling pot and stuff in high school, so that's how I met him. And
I mean, it's a great way to meet new friends. I mean,
It is.
not a great way. Sorry.
it was, it was what it was. I didn't smoke my product. I made a lot of profit. I mean, sales is sales.
Didn't meet a lot of new people, I'm sure.
Exactly. Everybody knew me. Everybody knew I could get them what they wanted.
Now, how did Dad take to this? Or did Dad find out about this? Or?
Dad was okay.
Well, you know now, Dad. Anyway.
Yeah. There was always gas in my car, and I wasn't asking him for money. So I might not. I did have a real job for a little bit. I was a floral assistant.
Floral assistant. What does that do?
I used to make like boutonnieres and floral arrangements and change out the water and all that in the floral shop.
Was it cool? Like, I mean, did you like it?
It was
Did you enjoy it?
great until my allergies kicked in. But for the most part, yeah, it was great. I loved it. You imagine going home smelling like flowers every day. Like, my boyfriend had like it all right there. I mean, I smelled like a bouquet of flowers all the time. I had money.
So was this the ultimatum your dad gave you? Was it? I mean, did it come at the right time to really set you down a better path, or?
Actually, my boyfriend at the time was in some trouble with the law, so we hopped into his car with his friend Troy and drove to Joplin while my dad was at work.
Full of good decisions, aren't you?
I am. If it's a bad decision, hey, I've done it.
If you're a teenage girl and you think you're going to make a great choice, it's probably wrong.
You should probably call me first. They probably
Call
already
somebody.
made it.
Yes. Call her, text her. She's on Facebook. You'll find her.
Right? There's a picture of my sign off of West 7th Street. My number's there. Just give me a call.
Okay, so you guys hop in a car. You travel to
Yep.
Joplin. Now, was your boyfriend from Joplin, or did you?
Oh, no, I met him in California.
Oh, okay.
He was.
So he's coming out here just totally not knowing what it's like.
He came with me a couple visits to my mom.
Oh, okay.
But
So
it wasn't like total, but it was like,
it's still a little culture shock, I'm sure. I mean, for
It
him,
was a lot slower.
Oh, yeah.
But he was a great guy. I actually still talk to him on occasion. But yeah, I got pulled over in Flagstaff, Arizona because Troy decided to throw stuff out the window at a semi. And needless to say, in Flagstaff, Arizona, I realized that I was the only one in the car with a driver's license.
Uh-oh.
And the cop was talking about taking the guys to jail and the whole 9 yards. Well, the problem was, it wasn't my car. Not my car.
I thought we were going down the road of the good decisions, but apparently she still got a bad boyfriend, bad friend, and bad car. These are much bad
Needless to
decisions.
say, I talked the cop into just letting us pass through Flagstaff, Arizona. I promised him I would drive the entire way to Joplin. I did. I was pissed. I was not giving up those keys. Well, the guys had lied to me. They had said that they had fixed their driver's license situations, DUIs, whatever. And obviously they had not. Moved. I spent 3 days. I lived with my mom for 3 days, and rented a trailer in Trailer Park. Got a job.
What'd you do?
Waited tables at Pizza Inn.
Pizza Inn.
Woohoo!
Remember that? It was the $5 pizzas on Monday.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, old school stuff.
Yep. I waited tables, wore my dangly earrings, like the bomb. Well, and then I'm an idiot. A lot of the time, I'm very stupid.
I would not say that.
I moved here with my clothes, my shoes, my blanket, and my pillow, and a box of like my diploma and stuff. That's what I had. And I remember starting at Pizza Inn, and I didn't own a coat. It snowed. You do realize it snows here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was totally rocking some hand-me-down 80s coats back in the day. Picked up a new boyfriend after I kicked the deadbeat to the curb. If he sees this, I'm sorry, but yeah, still love you.
You were deadbeat at the time. She's not saying now. Calm down, buddy.
And actually, he really did care about me. He took very good care of me while he was here. He had some anger issues. I had some anger issues. Lit candles, fly swatter. Cops called. Yeah, it was just a bad ordeal, and we ended up getting evicted.
So is this about the time Matt comes into play?
Oh, hell no.
No?
Matt, my husband now is actually my 7th fiance.
Holy like...
I had commitment issues.
Apparently. But you guys have been together for a long time. Like, I know it had to happen sometime.
Oh, yeah. Quick.
Oh, you just... Everybody you meet, you're like, let's get married, and then...
No, they just kept putting diamonds in front of me. You ever put a diamond in front of a girl and have her say no?
No.
There you go.
It's not a common hobby of mine, okay? You do it once, maybe twice, and I'm out.
I bounced around, had a few boyfriends. I went to cosmetology school, dropped out of that. Did some mortgaging, sold some other stuff. Assistant manager at Burger King for a while, about 4 years, actually. Had a miscarriage. At the time I was dating Matt, we weren't married yet. Found out I was pregnant, ended up quitting Burger King, and shortly after that had a miscarriage. It took 2.5 months for me to get out of that depression thing.
That would kind of put you back, did that kind of bring back old feelings of the anger and stuff like that?
A little bit. When you've gone to therapy as much as I have, you kind of recognize your demons creeping up. Matt was a big support through all of it and kind of pushed me and said, hey, you're going nuts. You need to go back to work. You're going nuts. Go back to work. And that was probably the most beneficial thing I did after that. After my miscarriage, I started looking for a job. I did not want to go back into food. So I decided I want to go sell cars. And I went to Best, and Best told me I was a girl, I couldn't sell cars. I said, screw you, asshole. And I went on down the road. Well, I answered an ad for Regal Car Sales and Credit. And Chuck and his wife are amazing people. I mean, love them to death. I had bombed the interview, and I was walking out, and for some reason he comes up and he goes, tell me about your car. Like, okay, well, there's not much about it. It's a 4-banger Eclipse, standard shift. You know, that's not the cool one. I have a truck too. It's a standard and 95. Got a 3/4 ton transmission. They can pull just about anything you want, you know. And I start talking. Well, I sparked his interest. Matt and I were restoring a 57 Ford Fairlane, 2-door. So I started talking about that. I'm like, yeah, I got a 57 Ford Fairlane that we're restoring. It's got a 292 board, 40 over, you know, original 3-speed transmission. We dropped it from the column to the floor. Needless to say, he looked at me and he said, go get your driving record. And I had the job. And I was there for 8 years. I started as a salesperson, not knowing ding diddly, had to read the sales Bible, worst book in the world. You want a good, put your butt to sleep, read 2 pages of that, you're out cold. So, yeah, did that and worked my way up to general manager. And then...
all the while you're raising kids, right? Yeah.
My daughter was born April 15th of 2011. Matt and I had tried for a couple years and found out that I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I had a 6% chance of ever having children. PCOS is something that I'm very passionate about. 1 in 10 women in America actually have it, but it causes infertility. It's also a leading cause in cervical cancer, causes hormone imbalances, hair falling out. Some women get cysts on their ovaries, and when they rupture, they hurt like a son of a, yeah.
So is this something you could have had when you were young, too?
I was actually diagnosed with it when I was 18.
But, I mean, that's when you're diagnosed. But, I mean, you could have had it from...
They've actually done studies. It's actually hereditary. But, yeah, 1 in 10.
So, I mean, like, if you weren't dealing with enough other stuff, you had that messing with your hormones, too. It's unbelievable.
It's insane.
But yeah, I'm sorry. You moved on from, okay, so you ran the car lot for a while.
I skipped about 7 boyfriends because they're kind of a blur. It was a good time, don't get me wrong, but yeah, a blur. Still talk to some of them.
But then you got into real estate after the car business, right? So.
I did. My daughter was born prematurely. She was born at 30 weeks gestational age. They didn't know if she was going to make it. She spent 2 months in the NICU.
What is that? At 30 weeks, that's 5 weeks early or something? 6 weeks early?
2 months.
2 months early? Okay. I don't.
Yep. 30 weeks is 2 months early. They didn't know if she was going to make it. I learned later that they give you an epidural so that if they don't make it, you're less likely to freak out. Matt and I had gotten into a fight and I went into premature labor. So, did that for 8 weeks, back and forth to the NICU, 3 times a day, every day. It took me 3 days to actually go down and see my daughter because it was my fault. You know, I screwed up. But now I'm like, she's cool. She's my Buddha.
Buddha.
She is. She's my Buddha. All my kids have nicknames. But my first Mother's Day, it was spent with them doing x-rays, trying to find internal bleeding on my child. That was in, you ever see the incubator boxes at Walmart that you put like the money in?
Yeah.
My daughter lived in one of those for 2 months.
Right.
So I could only pull her out twice a day to feed her and stuff. And I tried breastfeeding. That's really hard when you're driving back and forth 3 times a day. So that didn't work.
I'm having trouble relating to that, but...
Right? She actually got a bottle early and kind of decided she liked food. What? She looked like a turtle. Her skin didn't fit. She was so cute. She was 3 pounds when she was born. 18 inches long. Really glad they didn't carry her to term. She would have been huge.
So being a parent, now you've been a parent for a while,
9 years.
Does that make you change kind of the way that you thought about your parents and kind of the anger and stuff?
It does. It puts a lot of things in light. 3 of my kids are adopted. So 3 of my kids come from very tough backgrounds. And one of my children is ADHD, mixed with an unidentified control disorder and something else. But he doesn't sleep. Long story short, I got him and that kid would sleep like an hour. That was it.
Wow.
And he would go 100 miles an hour, whole 9 yards. But he was developed. His mom was on meth, and his mom did heroin. So he was developed at this speed hence they call it speed.
Right.
That is just unfathomable to, for instance, me or you.
Yeah.
You know, so he moves at that pace all the time. It's really annoying to watch TV with him.
Is there anything?
Click.
Is there any medicine or anything that can help him?
My son's actually on ADHD meds. It took me a long time to decide to actually do the medication thing. And actually it was the school.
Is it helpful?
It is. It slows him down to hyperactive instead of crazy.
But it can help him focus on things.
He can sit and do his math now. He can read a book. He can watch half a TV show, and actually focus on it. And be able to say, this is what this is. I taught him double-digit math during our quarantine. So he thought that was cool. That's big kid math.
It's been great, hasn't it?
Right? Love it.
Love all these kids, but I don't want to be stuck in a house.
Notice they're not here.
2 months.
But while I was doing that, while I was going through the adoption process, it took me 907 days to adopt my boys out of DFS custody. When I was going through that process, I got promoted to general manager. I was going to school full time, had my daughter, I was working full time, and I got promoted. So
you just can't do one thing at a time. It always has to be a whole bunch of stuff at once, all the time.
No better time than the present. You might as well just get in there and get it done. But I actually did drop out of college because I got promoted to general manager. If you're going to school to get a degree in business management, well, you've already got the general manager on your resume.
Yeah.
So why finish it? Well, I've decided to finish that.
Well, now, I mean, for a lot of people, they reach GM status and a dealership. That's their life. I've chosen this as a career path. What made you decide to get out of that and go into real estate?
Between the court appointments and mom visits and all of that, it was too much. I was working 50 plus hours a week at the dealership. And then I was leaving there to go home to meet with caseworkers, to make sure somebody was going to take the boys to have their supervised visit with their grandpa. And, it was just a lot. And then with Sebastian's, my bass man, love that boy. With my bass, he didn't sleep. And he was angry. He didn't understand. All he knew is this woman took away my mommy. Well, he didn't understand that his mom, that he saw as being his mom, was actually a foster parent. So he was angry. He was 100 miles an hour, and just first steps quit. First Steps is a program for kids with disabilities so that they can function better and all of that in regular society. Yeah, they quit. He had an outburst and they're like, whoa, okay, that made us uncomfortable, we're out. So I was left trying to figure it out.
So how many kids do you have total now?
I have 4 now. 4. I went from 1 to 4 in the course of about a year.
That had to be a bit of an adjustment. I mean, my gosh.
It was. I actually ended up quitting at the car lot. It really kind of sucks. I really love the car lot. But I ended up quitting at the car lot and going to real estate school and focusing more on my kids and my family because these guys needed me. I mean, they needed stability and structure and somebody that understood that, I know you can't control that, but you can control this.
So real estate was a means to be able to still make an income, but have more time for your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I felt very much the same way. And then you've done real estate for quite a while, and now you for whatever reason, you wanted to be a broker for some reason. I don't know.
I was told once that
still don't
the
understand.
only certification worth getting is your broker's license. So I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go get my broker's license. You can't tell me I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a broker.
I think that's definitely part of that whole authoritarian problem. I want to do it my way, and that's
Exactly. And everything I do it my way.
It's very good.
I mean, I'm standing here talking to you.
What are your three best moments of your life?
The day my daughter got to go home from the hospital. And the day I adopted my boys. Got a lot of really good ones. And the day I adopted my youngest daughter, which I didn't even talk about her, but my K.
For those who didn't hear it, she just said I got a lot of really good ones.
I do.
And
I have a great life.
I want to kind of narrow in on that because I'm thinking the majority of those came after all those suicide attempts and after all that bad stuff. You had all these great moments.
When I realized that I didn't have to be that way is when I saw all the good that I had experienced. I mean, from making chocolate covered pretzels with my mom. I mean, that is a hell of a memory. To driving my first backhoe, to catching turtles and frogs and dropping the giant boulder on my friend's finger and putting a hole through it. I mean, just really good memories, and picking flowers in the field. I mean, or in California, going to the beach or going up to see the snow, because I lived in the middle. I was 45 minutes from the beach, 45 minutes from the snow. I mean, I had the perfect location for riding horses and meeting my husband, who I met him by borrowing gas money. True fact. I was a closing gift. My mama sold his house. To the day that the doctor said that Kaylin didn't have GI issues anymore. Kay, when I first got her, she was sick. She had a massive blockage, and it took them 1.5 years to find it. So everything she ate, she threw right back up. She quit growing for 1.5 years. I drove back and forth to Kansas City repeatedly because she was sick, and we needed to figure out why she was sick. And yeah, that first clean bill of health, I was like, oh, she ate a piece of pizza and she kept it down, and I'm not cleaning the floor. That's exciting. To the first time my teenager called me mom. I mean, that was big. He's like, or the first time he told me he loved me. I mean, that is huge, huge stuff. So, I mean, I have so many just, bam, this is awesome. I'm just along for the ride.
So awesome. I just really wanted to pinpoint that so many of them came after the suicide, because, I mean, what I really wanted to start this channel, video, vlog, whatever you call this, podcast, I don't know what you call it. Whatever this is that I do, is I really wanted it to make a point, because I get at least 2 calls a year from friends that are talking about suicide, or they're depressed and they've got these feelings. And I always go back to, and I always say, like, well, did you ever have these feelings before? And they always say, yeah, it was when I was 14, when I was 15. I thought about suicide. And then I always say, well, were there some great things that happened in your life after that? Mm-hmm. And they think about those things. Think about all the great things that are going to happen after that time. Why would you ever think about it again?
The hardest thing to ever do, because even as an adult, I had a suicide attempt. You kind of knew about that, but looking at your kids and trying to explain what those scars are, that is the hardest thing you will ever do. So is it worth it? Hell no. Go drink a beer. Think about the good. Look at your kids. Look at your spouse. Look at your FB, whatever it takes. And just know that, it's going to pass. You can't let life bring you down that far. My dad said it best. You're stronger than that. You know, hell, if I can live through what I've lived through, ain't nobody taking me out.
That's right.
Better bring an army. More than 8. We've already determined I can take out 8.
I mean, I just think it's amazing, and I want everybody to think about that. Whatever bad things you're going through, if you're going through anything bad now, just know that you've gone through it before, and you've got much better times ahead. You know, you've got a ton of great stuff ahead of you.
Hell yeah. We're gonna party. I mean, my kid's gonna graduate next year. I am not contributing to the delinquency of my minor, but I will drink enough for him. Because at that point, I'm gonna be old.
Now we've just reflected on a great portion of your life, and I mean, we didn't hit every little thing, but
hell no, we hit a lot.
But we got a lot, and
your phone's probably dead.
I'm hoping it's not, but hopefully this video is still rolling. But anyway, we've got. After you think about all that, I got a couple of questions. So the main one is my favorite quote ever, and I just think it's great. Yeah, looking back on everything that you've gone through, everything that you've done. If today was your last day on earth, would you be proud of what you've done?
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
I've accomplished so much. I mean, if I got in a car accident on the way home, as long as I didn't do it, you know, hell yeah.
That's the best one.
It's a hell of a ride.
And then the last one would be to think about, your kids, think about your friends, your family, your people, anybody that maybe if something did happen to you, they could always watch this video. Anything that you want to say to anybody, just look at the camera and tell them.
I don't know. I think what keeps me going is life's just shit that happens every day. Character's how you deal with it. And to have good character, you can't let it define you. So, that's about all I got.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it so much. You're a good friend. I'm glad to have you. I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you guys have if anybody out there has a great story you want to share, you don't have to be no kind of celebrity. You don't have to be doing nothing great. I think this is about real people telling real stories about their real lives, and I think it's I think people can relate better to real people like Kysha. She's just a real person. I mean, she's really here. She's really gone through these things, and she's kicking ass and
taking names.
That's right. We're all going forward. But I want to say, we're all brothers and sisters in this life, whether you're religious or not religious, scientific, whatever. We all stem from the same thing, and we all should love each other.
God.
Look out for kids. Look out for these teenagers. Just give them a hug. Give somebody a hug today. Love you all. Have a great day.